there, this is Kelly. I want to talk to you guys today about a little bit more around the whole diabetes issue, which I think is so critical. When you're done with this program, you're going to be able to tell anybody about anything around diabetes. And this is going to be a two-stage talk, because there's a lot of information. I want you to own it. So diabetes, what a weird name. It means to pass through. And early on, we didn't fully understand that diabetes was identified as a passing through of a lot of fluid. So a lot of times you'll have excessive urination, or there are certain type of diabetes where the urine was very sweet because you're getting a lot of pass through of glucose. Well, what we're finding is that this irregular process around sugar is the foundation, the backbone of so many of the chronic diseases that you and I are dealing with on a routine basis. So let's talk about this process around diabetes type 2. And remember, diabetes type 1 is the congenital form of diabetes where you get it as a child, and they think there's a tie-in with the autoimmune disease, and these kiddos have to be on insulin and often are on pumps. But diabetes type 2 is a whole nother phenomenon. That is something that you earn through what you choose to put in your mouth, and you earn by how much you let your body gain extra fat. People don't want to really cop to that, but that's just the truth. And then, some of you know this, there's type 3 diabetes, which we're calling as Alzheimer's, because why? The sugar that is getting in and through the blood-brain barrier and all the challenges around that are creating problems with our capacity to focus and our capacity to think. And I challenge you, can you think of one person you know who had Alzheimer's who did not have a sweet tooth? Now, that doesn't mean they were necessarily eating lots of cookies, candy bars, but they were necessarily eating lots of carbohydrates. So remember, there's 3 types of food. There's proteins, amino acids, building blocks, like meat and beans and nuts and tofu. And then there's fat that helps the body insulate and create good surroundings for the nervous system, and so much more. And then there's carbohydrates, everything else. And in truth, vegetables and fruit and pasta and donuts, they're all carbohydrates. Some of them are complex, meaning they don't break down into sugar quickly like fruit and vegetables. And then some of them are not complex, simple carbs that are ready to roll once you put them in your mouth, and they turn instantly into sugar. So how does this thing happen? Well, when you have diabetes, your little pancreas, which is located underneath your stomach on the left-hand side, it has a hormone called insulin. The whole job of the insulin, well, there's a couple jobs, but one is to make sure that when you take in sugar, which is dangerous in excess in the bloodstream, remember, it causes arterial inflammation, hence atherosclerotic plaques, hence proclivity for stroke, etc., etc. No bueno. So too much insulin can happen from the fact that you're simply eating too much sugar. And that sugar is fine as long as the cells, the muscles in particular, can take in that sugar and say, thank you, I am hungry, I could use this sugar as fuel. And that comes in the form of eating hidden carbs. And people say, I don't eat sugar. Kelly, I don't eat sugar. And I say, I know you probably don't pick up the Mars bar, or even you pass the donut section, but you're getting hidden sugars in pancakes and muffins and pasta and breads and cereals, for goodness sakes. People think, but I eat Special K, but I eat grape nuts, but I eat wheat bran. All of that is just plain, simply processed carbohydrates that have made it into your mouth and will within seconds turn into the glucose molecule because it's been already prepared to do that. Waffles, juice, alcohol, cookies, chips. So yes, you are eating, if you're eating carbohydrates, you are eating sugar. If you're eating complex carbohydrates, such as potatoes, although they have a high glycemic index, we'll talk about that, or yams, that's better, because they have to actually take time. Now the second thing that causes your insulin to raise too much is not just that you're eating a lot of carbs, but you're eating too frequently. You're snacking, you're having 6 meals a day. And sometimes we say, yeah, but I'm hungry, I have to eat a snack. And the only reason you're hungry is that first meal was so laden with carbohydrates that you had this big spike in blood sugar. The insulin quickly ferried it into the cells, and now you have a low blood sugar, so you're thinking, oh God, I need more food. So you get it, and then you keep doing this rebound. So spiking your insulin when you snack or eat too many meals, and then you dump and you're hungry all over again. So on your plate you should have protein, you should have fats, you should have complex carbohydrates as in the form of vegetables, fruit potentially, and less processed carbohydrates such as the things we've listed here. And you think, oh, I hate you. Well, I understand, but when you eat real food and you eat it and you enjoy it and you sit down and you chew on it, you really won't have a lot of room for the carbs at the end. It's just that you can't start the day, you can't start the meal with these processed carbs. So I mentioned something called the high glycemic index. What does that mean? It means that foods that instantly turn into sugar and cause your insulin to go wild to protect your blood vessels, those foods are called high glycemic foods. Now, you can eat carbohydrates that have low glycemic foods. I mean, they don't turn into glucose, the ultimate primary substrate of carbohydrates, as quickly. So, a quick sugar or slow sugar release, that's really what we're trying to distinguish here. And you can think of it like a gaslit fire would be a high glycemic food, like boom, you're getting the fuel right away. Or a smoldering fire that might not even be able to catch something on fire. That would be more like a low glycemic food. So you don't want to see your sugars elevate in the bloodstream. It's a source of inflammation, a source of pain, source of diabetes, source of obesity, source of atherosclerosis, source of stroke. So you know what I'm trying to say. So just calm down and let's eat intelligently. So what is a high glycemic food? Well, anything that's refined, it's ready to roll, it's ready to be processed, to turn into your mouth, pop with sugar straight away. Those food companies are not stupid, because the more you get that sugar hit, the more you keep eating and want more. Sugary foods and drinks, obviously that's what we're talking about, candies and cookies and cakes and things like that. Processed grains, like people say, but I eat all bran. Well, I know, but bran is one thing, but all bran is processed bran. It's ready to rock and roll in your mouth. So examples of those things are white flour and crackers and soda and candy and cereals and instant rice, instant oatmeal. Those are going to boom, rocket. So what you can do as a plain simple rule is I'm not going to start any meal with any of these high glycemic foods. And you want to know something kind of funny? A piece of bread has a higher glycemic value than a Three Musketeers bar. You're like, what? Yes, and you know why? Because the Three Musketeers bar also has fat in it. And remember, we've talked about this concept of never eating a carbohydrate that's naked. If you're going to eat a carb, let's say like a piece of bread, put some peanut butter on it or put some butter on it. Add some fat so it doesn't, boom, shoot into sugar in your system. And you're thinking, really, I can eat butter? I say, yes. You know, toast with butter is way better for you than a piece of bread without some fat on it. So low glycemic foods are foods with high fiber value, you know, like sauerkraut and celery and broccoli and asparagus. Whole intact grains. What does that mean? Well, if you go into the grocery store and you look at those bins, you'll see things like buckwheat. Sometimes they call it kasha. You might see millet. You might see amaranth. These are all grains, non-gluten-free grains I'm picking in this case for you. Rye. These are grains that are plucked from the earth and not processed. They have their little outer husk and they're kind of tough. You can't eat them from just sticking them in your mouth. You have to cook them. And those have a a low glycemic index. So a lot of times I will have maybe some kasha or some millet or some amaranth, and you cook it just like porridge. Add a little butter, maybe some nuts, maybe a few raisins, and if you want a little bit of A2 cream or milk, it's fabulous. And it has a fair amount of protein in there, and it will not lit your fire. It will hold you for a little bit, particularly if you're adding butter and nuts, sources of fat. So examples are beans, lentils, vegetables, barley, kasha or buckwheat, steel cut oats, that didn't get put in there completely, I apologize, eggs, yogurt, nuts. Now, when I say yogurt, I do not mean the kind of yogurt you buy with lots of sugar. Okay, now you can go online and go high or glycemic index chart to get more examples, but I am really excited for you guys to begin this process, because my sense is, I'm going to get to that one next time, my sense is you're going to do much, much better by getting these things shifted and changed and having a better understanding all along. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you at the next time.